Hello, it's Annette here, and you're very welcome. I tell you what I think is sad, very sad. People who had a difficult childhood are very likely to find that their childhood follows them into their adult lives, and they have no control over this. And why have they no control over this? Because in a difficult childhood, a child learns toxic patterns and damaged core beliefs, and this is all done at a subconscious level. And these toxic patterns and damaged core beliefs follow them again subconsciously into their adult lives. And this is why I call my channel, Your Childhood is Over. No, it's not. It stems from a particular time I was talking to a professional. I was in my late 30s at the time, and I was struggling with an issue that happened in my childhood that I still found very hurtful to deal with. Well, this professional sat back in their chair and then shouted at me, "Your childhood is over, move on." I was completely shocked. I felt terrible shame. I felt such a failure that I couldn't move on from my difficult childhood. I didn't know how to respond to what was shouted at me, so I said nothing. But I most certainly did not ever go back to that professional. And then, a few years later, I was very lucky to meet a therapist called Pat O'Connor. And Pat understood how adults from a difficult childhood carry damaged core beliefs about themselves, and they also repeat toxic patterns, all learned in their childhoods and all learned subconsciously. This therapist explained the psychological concept of repetition compulsion to me, and suddenly my adult life made sense. I no longer felt shame as to how my life had turned out, as I realised that my childhood had followed me into my adult life through subconscious processes, and therefore I had no control over this. As soon as I was made aware of these processes, I began to heal. And that's why I set up this channel. Because if you had a difficult childhood, maybe you too are subconsciously carrying damaged core beliefs, and you are also subconsciously repeating toxic patterns, all learned in your difficult childhood. Today, I'm going to talk about these processes and how they feed into each other. In the pinned comment, there is a separate video describing each of these processes. The two subconscious processes I'm talking about today are the 6 bad messages and repetition compulsion. So thankfully, my therapist, Pat, he made me aware of both these processes. And that meant I now had a choice. I could decide if I wanted to stop these subconscious processes controlling my life, or if I wanted to take control of them. Now, I most certainly did not want these controlling my life as an adult, and I'd been through a series of so many disasters in my adult life, and I felt terrible shame as to how my life had turned out. But as soon as I was made aware of these processes and that they were operating at a subconscious level, I was able to drop the shame, as I realised I had no control over what was going on in my life at a subconscious level. So awareness set me free from these processes, and I worked out, therefore, that awareness of these subconscious processes is the first step in healing. Therefore, I hope that this channel will help you become aware of these subconscious processes. And when you are aware of them, you then have a say in stopping them controlling your life. So what am I talking about today? I'm talking about a process called the hidden loop. Excuse me. This is something I realised was happening as I worked through my healing. As it started to make sense, I began to work this out. And it's the connection between repetition compulsion and the 6 bad messages. And I'm going to put up a diagram now explaining this connection. And I'll leave it on for a while. So I'll keep talking, but the diagram will still be up. Let me take the first process in the loop, repetition compulsion. I explain it as follows. Children learn what they live. What they grow up in becomes their normal. It becomes what is familiar to them. And as adults, we are subconsciously wired or programmed to gravitate to what feels normal or familiar, even if it hurts. Repetition compulsion is the subconscious pull back towards what feels familiar. Again, even if that familiarity is painful. So if chaos was your normal as a child, if it is what you are familiar with, then chaos can feel normal for you in your adult life. The same applies to criticism. If criticism was familiar for you as a child, then as an adult, criticism can feel normal. If emotional neglect was normal for you as a child, if this was familiar to you, then as an adult, emotional neglect can feel normal. Okay. If being controlled and blamed or dismissed or used was your normal as a child, those things will also feel normal for you as an adult. The pull back to what feels normal may not be good for you. You may not want it, but this pull happens because you are subconsciously wired to gravitate to what feels normal or familiar to you. And this is the first part of the hidden loop. The way we are subconsciously programmed to gravitate towards what feels normal for us, even when it hurts us. Now let's look at the second process in the loop, the 6 bad messages. These are the damaged core beliefs a person can carry out of a difficult childhood and then into their adult life. And they are: 1. You are not enough. 2. You believe you are responsible for others. 3. You don't trust your feelings or your instincts. 4. You believe you are bad and you are wrong. And 5. You believe that you are alone and nobody loves you. 6. You believe you must be perfect or nobody will love you. So can you see how if you are feeding yourself these 6 bad messages, they will damage your self-confidence and they will damage your ability to trust yourself. They damage your ability to recognize mistreatment quickly and to respond strongly to it. If deep down you believe you are not enough, you may accept being treated badly by someone. If you believe you are responsible for others, you may wear yourself out trying to rescue everyone around you and trying to sort out their problems. If you don't trust your feelings or your instincts, you may talk yourself out of red flags or warning signs in a new situation. If you believe you are bad or you are wrong, you will assume that you are the problem in any given situation. If you believe you are alone and nobody loves you, you may cling to an unhealthy relationship as you are so terrified of being alone as you think nobody else will ever love you. And if you believe you must be perfect to be loved, you may work harder and harder to please people who are never going to treat you fairly in the first place. So, the 6 bad messages do not just ruin your self-confidence. They shape your behaviour. They weaken your ability to protect yourself. They make it harder for you to stand up for yourself. They make it harder for you to leave a bad situation. And they make it harder for you to say, no, this is not acceptable. And this is where the loop becomes so important. Repetition compulsion pulls you towards toxic situations as that is what feels familiar to you. And then the 6 bad messages make you more likely to stay there because you don't really believe you deserve anything better. So one process pulls you into the toxic situation and the other process keeps you stuck there. And this is the hidden loop. And this is why people can end up in toxic or abusive situations more than once, and why they end up feeling confused and ashamed or angry with themselves. And I was like that. This happened to me. People think, why did I not see things sooner? Why did I stay? Why do I keep ending up in these situations? This is exactly what I kept asking myself. And the answer is not that we're stupid. We're not stupid. The answer is not that we want abuse or we want toxic situations. The answer is not that there is something wrong with us. The answer is that the pull towards what is familiar is really powerful. It's subconscious. It's a primitive drive. And those damaged core beliefs are also powerful and subconscious. And both, if they're operating at a subconscious level, we're not even aware of this. Okay? We're under the control of two powerful subconscious processes. So when you combine these two processes, you can find yourself entering situations that feel strangely normal and familiar. But then as time goes by, you find yourself in a situation that's not healthy. It's toxic and you're getting hurt and mistreated. And that's why connecting these two subconscious processes is so important. As these two processes do not exist side by side, they feed into each other. They strengthen each other. And as I said, this is the loop. The toxic situation feels familiar as it is your normal, so you enter it. Then you feed yourself the 6 bad messages and they allow you to tolerate the bad situation as it's impossible to stand up for yourself as you've no self-confidence. So you end up getting hurt again and again. So look at it like this. The hidden loop leads you to getting caught in a never-ending cycle of getting hurt. Now, please know that this is not your fault, as this toxic cycle all happens at a subconscious level. So you are not to go around blaming yourself for this happening. You don't even know that these two processes are controlling how you are drawn to toxic, familiar situations, and you don't even know how they control what you think about yourself. You're not looking to repeat hurt and pain in your life, but sadly, because of your difficult childhood, you are being guided by a toxic familiarity and damaged core beliefs, all of which work at a subconscious level. And now this is the important bit. Until someone makes you aware that this is happening, you will keep repeating this cycle of hurt. But this is why I want to do these videos, because there is hope. And I want to encourage you. Healing is absolutely possible. And you do not have to understand all of this at once. You can listen to this video again and again if it sounds a bit complicated. You'll get the hang of it eventually. It's easy. It's difficult at the start, but you get the hang of it. Changing being drawn to the same toxic situations or changing damaged core beliefs that you can carry really, really helps. But you don't have to do it all at once. You can do it one bit at a time. When you change both, you close the loop and the loop finally loses control. And how do you do this? Awareness. Awareness is the key. Once you are aware that you are being drawn to toxic situations that may feel normal for you, but they're not healthy for you, you then have a choice to stop this happening in your life. You are now in control and not a subconscious force. It means when you enter a situation that may feel normal or familiar, you start to notice and acknowledge any discomfort rather than dismissing it. You start to pay attention to any red flags. And as well as becoming aware that you are being subconsciously drawn to toxic but familiar situations, you also become aware that you are subconsciously feeding yourself the 6 bad messages. You can then start to challenge these bad messages using my nip and flip method. All of this, as I said, it's not instant. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, 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 practice. But I want to tell you that it most surely can be done. Because once you become aware of the hidden loop, you are no longer controlled by it, as you have moved a subconscious process to a conscious process. You've moved it into your conscious mind, and we can control what is in our conscious mind. So awareness is the first step to breaking free from the control of the 6 bad messages and repetition compulsion, and therefore awareness is also the first step to breaking free from the control of the hidden loop. With awareness, you begin to notice, I am being pulled towards something that is familiar, but it's not healthy, it's toxic, and you begin to notice, I am feeding myself those damaged core beliefs and the 6 bad messages, and these two processes will lead you to tolerating something you should not have to tolerate and something you most certainly do not deserve. The moment of awareness matters because this is where change and healing begins. So, if you have found yourself in toxic, exploitative, or abusive situations over and over, and you have wondered why this keeps happening, I want you to understand this clearly. It is not because you were born to suffer. Nuh-uh. It is not because you are weak. No. It is not because it's all you deserve. Absolutely not. It is because repetition compulsion pulls you towards toxic, familiar situations, and the 6 bad messages weaken your self-confidence within that toxic familiarity, so you end up staying there. Repetition compulsion draws you back to familiar but painful situations, and the 6 bad messages keep you stuck there as you end up not having the confidence to feel you deserve better. So together, repetition compulsion and the 6 bad messages form a hidden loop, one you can't see as it is all subconscious. That is, until you become aware of this hidden loop. And the great news is now, once you can see the hidden loop, once you become aware of it, you can begin to break it and it loses its power over you. Awareness is the first step to healing. Awareness is the first step to breaking free from the control of the 6 bad messages and repetition compulsion. So therefore, it follows that awareness is the first step to breaking free from the control of the hidden loop. Now, by watching this video, the good news is that I hope I'm making you aware of how you may be under the control of the 6 bad messages and repetition compulsion. And this awareness is your first step to breaking free from the control of both these 2 subconscious toxic forces. Welcome to awareness. Welcome to healing. Thank you for watching this, and I hope it helps.